The second USS Perkins was a main-class destroyer in the United States Navy before and during World War II. She was named for George Hamilton Perkins. Perkins was laid down the 15th of November 1934 at the Puget Sound Navy Yard, Bremerton, Washington. She was launched the 31st of December 1935, sponsored by Mrs. Lars Anderson, commissioned the 18th of September 1936, with Lieutenant Commander Samuel P. Jenkins in command. Operational history. Assigned first to destroyers, scouting force, then to destroyers, battle force. Perkins was home-ported at San Diego, California and operated in the Eastern Pacific prior to World War II. At Mare Island Naval Shipyard for overhaul, the 7th of December 1941. She reported for convoy escort duty on the 15th and on the 17th was en route to Pearl Harbor. By the 15th of January 1942 she was back at Mare Island for the installation of new radar equipment, and on the 25th she returned to Hawaii. On the 2nd of February she departed Pearl Harbor with Chicago for the Southwest Pacific. On the 14th she joined Australia, New Zealand and other U.S. ships in the Anzac Squadron then charged with protecting the eastern approaches to Australia and New Zealand. Through the spring, she continued operations with that squadron, steaming at times with fast carrier forces as they plied the Coral Sea to strike at enemy encroachments, escorting refueling units to rendezvous areas, and screening larger ships of her own and combined forces as they blasted enemy positions from New Guinea to the Solomon Islands. On 1–2 May, the squadron joined with TF-11 and TF-17, then screened the carriers of those forces as the planes struck at Tulungi to open the Battle of the Coral Sea. Detached on the 7th, the squadron steamed to the Louisiade archipelago to intercept a Japanese amphibious attack on Port Moresby via the Jomard Passage. That afternoon the ships were attacked by land-based planes, and in driving them off contributed to the diverting of the Japanese force, thus accomplishing the mission without engaging the enemy ships and setting the stage for the final action of the Battle of the Coral Sea, the carrier battle on the 8th of May. As the carrier forces fought to a draw, the Anzac Squadron continued to patrol to the southeast of Papua. On the 10th the squadron headed for Australia, and for almost 2 months Perkins escorted convoys and patrolled off-harbour entrances along that country's Coral and Tasman Sea coasts. During this time, Perkins was one of several major Allied vessels in Sydney Harbour during the Japanese midget submarine attack of the 31st of May 1942. On the 11th of July she sailed for Auckland, thence to Noumea. Convoy escort duty between Suva and New Caledonia followed, and in mid-August she was forced back to New Zealand for propeller repairs. On the 20th, however, she sailed for Pearl Harbor, where repairs were completed and additional radar equipment and 40mm guns were installed. In mid-November Perkins headed west again, arriving at Espiritu Santo on the 27th. 3 days later she departed Sagan Channel in Rear Admiral Carlton Wright's cruiser destroyer force to intercept and destroy enemy forces, attempting to reinforce the units on Guadalcanal. At 2315, 5 radar contacts were made, and a few minutes later the Battle of Tassafaronga was engaged. Perkins loosed 8 torpedoes, scoring none, then turned her guns on the beach. Undamaged in the encounter she turned toward Tulungi to assist the burning Pensacola, while Maury went to assist New Orleans. Continuing operations from Tulungi, she bombarded the Guadalcanal coast and served on escort assignments until January 1943. A brief availability at Noumea followed, and by the 13th, she was back at Tulungi for further escort and support missions. At the end of April, Perkins joined TF-10 for tactical training, and in May she returned to Australia to join the forces gathering for the thrust up the New Guinea coast to gain control of the Huon Peninsula. Into the summer, the base at Milne Bay grew. At the end of June, Allied amphibious forces moved into Nassau Bay, just south of Salamaua, and into the Trobriands. Infantry units pressed toward Salamaua. Australians from war in the foothills of the Owen Stanley Range and Americans from Nassau Bay. PT boats punched at the enemy's Finschhafen Lay supply line, and AAF and RAF planes bombed and strafed Japanese installations as far as Wewak and Madang. On the 21st of August, Perkins' flagship of Disron 5 led Smith, Conyngham, and Mahon out of Milne Bay to make a sweep of Huon Gulf, then bombard Finschhafen. On the night of 22-23 August, they accomplished the mission and brought naval gunfire back to the New Guinea campaign after its absence through 18 months of ground fighting. On the 4th of September, Perkins bombarded the coast between the Bulu and Buso rivers, then covered Allied soldiers as they streamed ashore at Red Beach and headed toward Ley. On the 8th, she trained her guns on the isolated garrison at Ley, and on the 15th the last remnants of that garrison pulled out. Salamaua, dependent on Ley, had already fallen, and on the 16th Allied forces marched into Ley. Fate. Finschhafen fell the 2nd of October. The scouring of the river valleys commenced, and the increase in Allied traffic in Huon Gulf, together with the presence of Japanese submarines, brought Perkins back to escort duty. Reinforcements were escorted to Langemak Bay and to Scarlet Beach east of Saddleburg. In November, escort duties continued. Then, on the 28th of November 1943, she departed Milne Bay for Buna, steaming independently. Shortly before 0200 on the 29th, a dark image emerged from the blackness, and a few minutes later the Australian troopship Duntroon rammed her on the port side, amidships. Splitting in two, Perkins went down approximately 2 miles off Ipotato Island. 9 personnel were killed, and a 10th seriously injured. A court of inquiry, held in San Francisco the following month, later held the captain of Perkins accountable for the incident, along with his executive officer and officer of the deck honors. Perkins earned 4 battle stars during World War II.